All right, guys, I am really excited to share with you today some of the things that I use with my clients every day. We're going to go over the basics of what you need to do to set up your business. Now, just to let you know, this is not going to be a boring, slow presentation. We're going to go fast. I'm going to cover a lot of content, but the great thing about this is that when we're done here, you're going to know exactly what to do, and some of the questions that you've been asking yourself, we're going to answer them today. All right, so let's just jump right in. Okay, so who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, first, just to let you know, I've been starting businesses since I was a teenager. So I'm a lot like you out there, the serial entrepreneurs out there, the ones that are attracted to this awesome program that you're going through. But what I know is this. A lot of people, when I was starting out, they didn't really teach me, some of the basics things that I need to know as a business owner. So that's what I'm here to share with you today. All right, so the agenda. We're going to talk about setting up the business, what makes sense and what may make sense for you. We're going to talk about corporate veil. You may not know what that term means, but you're going to pretty soon. And we're going to talk about banking and also basic bookkeeping. Now, mind you, we're not going to get too granular in this. And the reason is, first of all, I think, this is my disclaimer, I would rather you guys go out, do the program, make money, and pay somebody to do it. Bookkeepers, you can get them cheap. You can get a lot. CPA doesn't cost that much money. I'd rather you focus your time on making money through the program you're going through than to become an expert at this. So this is meant just to get you started. And just to let you know, once you start making more money, definitely hire those people. And that's my disclaimer. So I'm not a lawyer and I'm not doing your taxes. All right. So let's move right on. All right, so setting up a business. So what does that mean? A lot of people that start businesses, they'll just basically, I start a business, I get a business card printed and I hand it out and, so on. That's it. Well, there's a little bit more that you really want to consider doing because there are liability issues. What does that mean? It just means when you go out to, offer your services to the public, you really put yourself in a position that you could potentially put yourself or your assets in a liability position. Now, if you're just starting out, you don't really have much in terms of assets or your base, then, you might not be thinking along those lines, but it's good to get the best practices now. If you're a little further along the line and maybe you've made money in corporate America working for somebody and this is one of your first goes at a business, well, then you definitely want to listen to this too. All right, so a couple different options for you. First thing first, so DBA. That just stands for doing business as. What is that? It's a very cheap, inexpensive way to really be able to run your business. Now, every state's going to have a different way of going about that, but they're typically cheap. When I first started my businesses, when I was much younger, I think I paid something like $10 or $15. So just to give you an idea, we're going to start from simple and then we're going to go a little bit more complicated. So DBA, that's really as simple as it gets. Sole proprietorship, that kind of blends into that. So a sole proprietor, just think of it like this. It's you basically doing business under either your own name or under the DBA. So maybe, for example, my name's Adam Torres. And my company is Century City Wealth Management. So I'm under the next one that you see, which is a LLC, and we'll go through that one also. But let's just pretend that it was a DBA. All that means is I would be Adam Torres doing business as Century City Wealth Management. So it makes it very, very simple, very easy, especially if you don't have money coming in at the moment. You might consider that going that route. Next route down, limited liability company. So what is that? What does that mean? Think of it like this. You may have assets, you may have that you want to protect, and if somebody sues you, it's not a guarantee that you won't be liable, but what it's doing is it's protecting your assets. So a great way to potentially protect the assets against a lawsuit or something else like that. S Corp, that's if we're going again, we're going down the line from very simple to a little bit more complicated, or if you have a little bit of more of a larger asset base, that might be the route you go. And then finally, corporation. Now, corporation, you're probably not going to want to go that route until you have quite a bit of assets, and that's because you don't necessarily want that double taxation that takes place at the corporate level. A corporation is just this. Think of it as it's an individual entity. So a corporation has really the same rights as a human being has. You could think of it that way. All right, so now let's just say that you set up your business, you know if you're going to be a sole prop, you know if you're going to be a corporation, a S Corp, you already know what you're doing there. Next thing, if you can get this out of this entire presentation, if you get this one concept, and that's just the concept of a corporate veil, then you'll be able to make decisions better as a business owner. So the first thing you want to think about is think of it as it's really protection. It's showing through when the IRS, if they were to audit you, they're thinking about, the term is called piercing the corporate veil. They want you to be able to prove that you are running a legitimate business and that it's not a hobby. Okay, so let me repeat that. It's a legitimate business and it's not a hobby. There's a big distinction in the IRS's eyes, and some of the things that you can do to protect yourself is you want to fund the business. So that means you actually need to put money into an account under the business's name. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You want to separate your finances. Too many entrepreneurs that I see, they run their businesses on their debit card. You know, the same banking account that they go to 7-Eleven at, or they go to the store with. That's not going to fly if you get audited. That's a bad thing. You want to separate your finances. Some other considerations, not mandatory, but I would have you consider them. I advise my clients, you may get a P.O. box, you get a business phone number. These are relatively inexpensive things, but if you think about it, I mean, you do these little investments to make things better for you down the line. And also, just as a side note on the sales note, this presentation isn't really about sales, but just from one business owner to another, if you don't have all these things set up, then you're going to put yourself in a larger pool of competition. Less people go this route. They don't go the extra mile to do these little things that will really separate you as a business owner. Okay, so bank account, what does that look like? It's very easy to set up. Let's just imagine that you've already decided you have either that DBA, your LLC, your sole prop, whatever route you went. Now you're thinking about, okay, how do I separate my finances? First thing you're going to want to do is you need a tax ID. So think of it as the tax ID it's really like the social security number for your business. So you have a social security number or some identification number, your business needs one too. Think about it that way. Really inexpensive. You can go on the IRS's website and get these things done. I don't even recall the last time I did it. It might have been $1 or $2, or I don't know, $10. Very inexpensive. So make sure you do it. Once you have that, then you can go to a bank. You'll take that piece of paper to them and you'll tell them, you want to open up your business account. Now, I recommend shopping around because depending on where you're at, fees, things like that, they add up. Think about it. Now, you got to think like a business owner. So you want to keep the costs down and you don't want to overpay. So spend a little bit of time and research what bank you want to do business with, and also what's going to be the easiest for you, because your time and your time management, that's going to be huge. A lot of that's going to dictate your overall success. So bank account is going to be really important. All right, bookkeeping tools. So a couple different routes you can go here. Now, I'm all about using ZipBooks or QuickBooks, and really, if we think about what those entail, so ZipBooks and QuickBooks, they'll do a lot of things for you. They'll do things like your invoicing. They'll do things like your I doubt you may or may not have payroll, but you can run your payroll through there. You can do a lot of different features on those. They make it really easy to just input the data, and it's really, most of it's done for you. So that's the great part about that. If you don't even want to go that route, Excel, or even just numbers, right? I mean, these general programs make it very, very simple to operate your business in a time-efficient manner. Okay, now, and I include this last one. I doubt most of the people watching are going to do this one, but I include this last one, and it's just because if you're even stuck on all that, you're like, you know what? I don't want to learn another program. I don't want to learn another, piece of software, another thing. You already have your hands full with what you're learning on how to help people with their social media and or the other services you're offering. Well, I use Dome. I mean, I've used that. That was one of my first ones. Dome Simplified Weekly Bookkeeping Record. Don't laugh. It's just a regular, it's a ledger. And the good thing about it is if you're just starting out, you probably don't have many expenses. It's not going to take you that much time to input no matter no matter which one of these you choose. So I would just say whatever you do use, stick with it until you grow your business to the point to where you're just outsourcing it. Because really a lot of these things you're going to want to, I mean, a bookkeeper is pretty inexpensive. Depending on what market you're at, you might be able to get them for $100, $200 a month. So again, ask yourself what you want to really become a subject matter expert in. So let's look at some, basic bookkeeping though. So let's just say you're starting day one right now. Let's just recap. So you picked, are you going to be a sole proprietor? Which if you're watching, what does that mean? It means that you're just doing business under your name or a DBA. Or you're going to be an LLC. Let's just do the refresher on that. LLC is what? Limited liability company. So that's just saying that you want to shelter yourself. You want to protect your assets. S Corp is another, just to repeat, what is that? Pass-through organization. So think of it like a corporation, but it's a little bit simpler and you don't face that double taxation that I talked about before. Corporation is what? When your company's bigger, when your CPA tells you, you know what, you should incorporate because there's a specific tax benefit to it. So once you've decided that, just to repeat, so then the next step you decide what? You got to decide your software. Are you going to use software? Are you going to go old school method with one of those Dome planners? When you choose that, next thing is your basic bookkeeping. Okay, so this really doesn't have to be that complicated. So I don't want you to get, tense or scared on this one because it doesn't really have to be that bad. All you have to do is think about it this way. If you were audited, which I've seen people be audited, all that they're going to be looking for is, okay, number one, is this a hobby or is this a business? So are you making money? Are you going at this as a business, or is it more looking like a hobby? So that's the first thing they're going to ask you. So the next thing is, how are we going to prove against that is, what did we say? Separate your finances. Everything should be separated. Fund it. Put money in the bank account. I told you how to open it. So now let's assume that you have all those bases covered, which, by the way, that shouldn't be that much more work, but I beg you, just make sure that you do all those little steps because they will add up to you protecting yourself more than otherwise. Now we get to, okay, it's time to actually, add some expenses into the ledger or into QuickBooks or ZipBooks or whatever you choose to use. So these are some of the basics. I just put them up there. These are some of the basic questions that people ask me. So tracking mileage. And are miles deductible? Well, you're going to want to definitely track your miles. So when small business owners, when they get themselves in trouble with the IRS, the reason they usually do is because they don't track things. They just write a number down, right? They write a number down and they estimate. Well, the more exact you can be with this stuff, so the more exact you can be with what you're doing, the less likely you are to, if you're audited, have an unfavorable outcome. So there's apps for tracking mileage. That's what I do. Just download an app. It's very simple. Go to your apps store and just search Mile Tracker. Get one and you'll be fine there. Next thing, keep your receipts. Allowable expenses. Most people, a lot of people, they neglect this. You want to keep your receipts. It's not enough to just have your bank statement and say, oh, you can see I charged it because look at this line item. That's not what the IRS wants to see. A lot of times if someone's being audited and it's unfavorable, it's because they don't have the receipt. They can't produce it. So a lot of the apps, like I said, the Mile Tracker, a lot of these combine it. So now this is easy. I remember when I started in business, I had these little file folder that I used to have to take the receipt and put it in there, and I organize it, put it month by month. You don't even have to deal with that. Just download the app and just be diligent about using it. So staying organized is going to be a big deal. And the reason it's going to be a big deal is because you're going to have different deductions for different things. So not to get too granular, I don't want to, again, scare you off for this, but just know that like little things like this. So your deduction for traveling expenses versus meals here, I mean, that's different. Meals, when you're entertaining a client, you know, some may be 100% deductible, some may not. So these things will change. So same thing with mileage. When you're traveling, that it may be different depending on where you're at. So a lot of these things all go back to that main key. What is it? So piercing the corporate veil. The corporate veil, think of that as that's protection. That's what's around you. That's, as a business owner, that's what you want to make sure that if you're, you know, you get audited, that you have some something on your side that proves that you are operating a legitimate business. So these are a lot of the basics on what you need to do. This is like day one. If I'm in your shoes and I'm starting this social media agency, or your corporate services, whatever you're doing, just make sure day one, these are the things you want to get done. All right. So I appreciate everyone for watching. I hope you got a lot out of this, and you can definitely follow me on Instagram at @AskAdamTorres, or if you want, I put a lot of content out. It's all financial related, or again, visit my website, so centurycitywealthmanagement.com. Have a wonderful day.